Good evening and happy Saturday evening. Welcome to this special edition of Saturday episode of Trial Watch with Demetra. While I let some folks get in here, let me share this video really quickly. Let me share this video. Okay. Welcome back to the Lit Lane Jury Box, where we participate in the trial watches. Hey, Renee, let me tell you, Renee. Hey, Winter. The reason why I said in 30 minutes, I think I'm a little bit late behind the 30 minutes, is because guess who had their puppies last night? Champ, Rockstep half brother, his puppies, because he made it with the dog downstairs, a little terrier. She had 5 puppies last night, 4 boys and a girl. So of course I get second pick. They get first pick. They pick the girl. I get second pick, and in a couple of weeks here, as they puppies grow and develop, I'm gonna try to pick me a cute little stud. And so I can't wait to show you guys my first little grand pup. Okay, my first little grand pup. I'm a fur grand, and the puppy name gonna be Apollo, like Apollo Creed. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell him, you say congratulations, girl. He went up in there. When we went up in there to go see the puppies, Champ ran running over there and trying to see what was going on with them babies over there. And the mama almost tore his head off. She a good mama. Hold on, let me do this real quick. So I'm gonna definitely show y'all the progress of the puppies as they come along. I should have took a picture, but I didn't. Hey, Silky Black. Hey. Welcome back to Trial Watch with Demetra. This is an update of the last previous trial that we concluded maybe 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago now. And that was the trial of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. That was a very unfortunate case, very sad case that involved the unaliving of a 20-month-old baby, little Quentin Simon. Uh-oh, let me change my background. One moment. Wait. Okay, let's change the background to match. I hope y'all had a good Saturday. I had a good Saturday out and about. I'm in a arts and craft type of spirit. I ended up going to the stores, and instead of Christmas shopping, I've been buying art and paint supplies, right? So I've been running around and bought me some canvases and bought some new paint, and I think I bought a little set of brushes today. I just feel like painting. And so I'll show you guys that my little artwork as it progresses, uh, as I'm trying to get this here done. But let me get this background done, then I can give y'all the case facts, the facts of the case. Let's see. Let me change my background so it can be more appropriate, of course. Boom, there we go. Boom, there we go. Now that looks better for this type of content. All right, so again, we're going to do an update on the state of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. To the right, that's Leilani Simon. And in the middle there is the victim in this case, 20-month-old baby Quentin Simon. In 2022, October 5th, Leilani Simon, the mom, reported the baby missing. 32 days later, the baby was found. The baby's body, remains of his body, was found in a local landfill. Leilani Simon told a multitude of different stories, but they actually had evidence of her going to the dumpster. They had found her caught pictures of the red light cam with her being out in the middle of the night. And a jury of her peers there in Georgia They found her guilty. So today, they just went back this week, a couple of days ago. Hey, Betty Boop, welcome to the Leilani Jury Box. I see you've been catching up. Yeah, he gonna stay still clear on puppies. I see you've been catching up, Betty Boop. I've been seeing you in the comments. Thank you for the support on this content. So today, she just went to sentencing. I do believe maybe Wednesday, if not Thursday. It might have been Thursday. So today we're gonna watch the sentencing, and during the sentencing, we're gonna get to hear from some family members and witnesses that we did not get to hear testimony from. We were real curious to know what her mother felt, and we wanted to hear from Leilani Simon's mom, and we didn't get the chance to do that during the trial. She does testify during this phase, the sentencing phase, okay? And Leilani Simon does get an opportunity to talk as well, okay? So it makes for good. You guys, I was already looking for our next trial, and I'm deciding between two, but the next one's gonna be pretty good too. Pretty good too. So let's go ahead and get that pulled up. Please hit that like, and let me do this. Let's see. Where's my download? Now I just maybe I downloaded it in it too. Child, oh, don't tell me I don't have this downloaded. Can I share it from where it's at? I wonder if I can share it from. One moment. Yeah, I had been out and about doing some little shopping and stuff like that. Was telling you guys about, and then when I came home, I was bored. Because I'm not into the current content, which that's fine for everybody else who is, but I'm not. And so I had fell asleep for a minute, and then I woke up. I said, "Let me go do this sentencing hearing because there might be other people out there that want something else to watch." Okay, just see. And I'm not even prepared, child. I thought I had this. Let me see if I can put this on full screen and maybe I can share from here because it didn't download for whatever reason. Um, let's see if I can share from here and then allow me. Yeah, I can do it like this. Okay. So I don't have to try to download and do all that. I can share it from the tab. Hey, Foot Soldier, good evening. Went to say there are so many trials going on at one time. I can't keep up with some of them. Yeah, I just finished watching the what was that? Tennessee? Which state was that? The baby murder, the Cope baby murder. I just finished watching that one this week here. They found her guilty. Well, there might be a future case. Let me see. Where is boom? Right here. I'll share from here. Okay, let me make it big. Okay. Boom, there you go. I know Eminem, right? That's why I say let me come live and do this. Cause I know Lady T asked me last night. She said she was waiting to see what happened and how much time they gave her. And I just peeped in while I was doing the recording. I didn't watch this phase, so it's gonna be new to me too. As y'all can see, the court has way more people. Oh my God! I know you lying it. Oh, it's over. Oh, okay. Hold on. I thought I had. I thought I recorded it with no sound, child. Okay, let's go.
All right. We are here today
Okay,
for the
welcome to
sentencing
Leilani Jury
hearing of
Box.
Leilani Simon. This is
Right?
SPC R22-03364J6, the state of Georgia versus Leilani Marie Simon. Let the record reflect that counsel for both parties are present for the state, are Assistant U.S. Attorney Tim Dean, Assistant District Attorney Jenny Parker, and Detective Lemons. For the defense, present for Ms. Simon are her attorneys, Martin Hilliard and Robert Purse.
Hey, watching.
Ms.
Happy
Simon is
Saturday.
seated with her attorneys. And with that, we'll turn our attention to the matter at hand.
That's her mom, the grandmother.
Are there any merger issues? And I believe we have relatively easy merger issues to proceed with. The felony murder counts would be vacated by operation of law, and the others will be handled with the pronouncement of sentence. So, Mr. Dean, turning to the state first, is there any evidence in aggravation?
There are, I think, some merger issues with respect to some of the false statements.
Let's go back to that.
I emailed the court and the defense about this morning. My belief is that some of the false statements count should merge with others. They count 10 should merge factually with 9. That count 14 should merge factually with count 13. And that 17 should merge.
I think I feel.
Okay.
So I may not exactly be right, but out of an abundance of caution, I would request that the court merge those 3 counts with the ones that precede them.
Okay. And once again, to make sure I have those correct.
Okay, so she got found guilty. She got convicted of 14 different counts. Was it 14? I think it was like 14 different counts. Good afternoon, Lady Steph. Welcome back to the Danger Box. We held your seat, girl. And so right now they saying, okay, she got like more than 5 or 6 of them was false statements from her lying doing her interrogations and lying to the police. So they gonna just pretty much put those convictions together instead of sentencing each one. So let's continue.
You're suggesting that count 10 merge into 9.
Uh-oh.
9. And then what was the next?
That count 14 merge factually into count 13. And that count 17 merge factually into count 16.
All right, thank you. Any others? All right.
Your Honor, just for the record, I concur with the court. Count 2 and 3 should be vacated as an operation of law. And I also concur with Mr. Dean. I think factually those counts would merge, and those would be the ones that I would move for merger on as well. So we don't have any objection proceeding in that manner. So.
All right, thank you. Okay. Any evidence in aggravation of punishment, Mr. Dean?
Yes, Your Honor. The first item in aggravation that I would introduce is what I've marked as State's Exhibit 1. This is a certified copy of conviction from Burke County Superior Court in which the defendant was convicted of criminal trespass reduced from burglary in the first degree. So I would offer that.
This is the first time we see her dressed in jail clothes. Hey, Lady Sparkle, good evening. Happy Saturday.
I don't think it triggers any recidivist punishment, Judge, and it's an appropriate copy, but no objection, but I don't think it does anything to trigger 17-10-7.
All right. Thank you.
It looked like Judge Stokesman got her highlights done.
Any
I have pretty.
other, evidence you wish to put forward?
She definitely got it colored.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Head detective.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
All right. You understand that one of the most important factors the court considers in fashioning a sentence is whether and to what degree the defendant has accepted responsibility, right?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you some questions kind of designed to get at that, okay? First, I want to ask you about the various sources of information you've had access to during the investigation and then after the defendant was arrested that represent kind of sources of statements that she made, things that she said about the case, okay? Let's start with interviews. You interviewed her a number of times, right?
Yes, I did.
And there were some other law enforcement interviews that you didn't participate in, but did watch.
Correct, yes.
You've talked to witnesses who have talked to her.
Yes,
For instance, Melanie Bowling, Billy Joe Howell, the defendant's mother.
yes,
You have seen the news interview that she did during the investigation.
yes, I have.
And have you also monitored her communications from the jail during the time that she spent there between her arrest and the trial?
I have,
Listened to many of her phone calls from the jail,
yes,
read
That's the
emails
that's her
that she
mom,
sent
grandmother.
from the jail,
yes,
and read letters that she exchanged with a pen pal, right?
yes,
You've also watched some video recorded, like video visits that they can do,
yes,
sort of like a FaceTime type thing.
yes,
So you've seen her talk a lot.
I have,
You've heard her talk a lot.
yes,
Those various statements have included some stories about that night, right? About what happened or what might have happened.
yes, they have.
Let's talk about the abduction story. Tell us about the abduction story or stories.
Yeah, so that initially started on October 5th. That was the initial story that she came up with was Quentin was abducted by Bubba.
And was there a version of the abduction story at some point that involved not Bubba as the alleged kidnapper, but strangers, unknown strangers?
Yes, on that first day after we had confirmation from the FBI office in Augusta that Bubba was most likely not going to be involved, she started mentioning, random vehicles that had followed her throughout the night or had stopped in front of her house, just trying to cast suspicion on those.
What about Michelle McCarta, Quentin and his siblings' babysitter? Did she ever feature in any version of the abduction story offered by the defendant?
Yes, there's a few times where she tried to say that possibly Michelle McCarta was involved.
So as to the abduction story,
Not blaming the
in various
babysitter.
forms, Bubba took him, maybe a stranger took him, maybe Michelle took him, right?
Correct.
There's also a story, or maybe multiple versions of variants on the same story, alleging that Danny was involved or Danny did it or something along those lines.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that story or stories?
Yep. So the Danny possibly being involved started shortly after Daniel left. That was brought up in a text message to Savannah Solomon on October 24th and during our interview on the 31st of October. It's also been mentioned a number of times in our jail calls, just various versions of that story.
It has included the claim that Danny was actually the one at the dumpsters at 1:20 or so in the morning on October 5th, right?
Yeah, that was the story from October 31st. Is it wasn't her at the dumpster, it was actually Daniel.
There's also been a different version from her in which she suggests that, actually, no, he threw him in some other trash receptacle on his way to work after the sun had come up, right?
Yes.
So as to Danny, two different versions of the Danny did it story, right?
Yes, it is.
At some point, did she try out something that I'll call the bathtub theory on you?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So in her final interview on November 21st, she did mention that possibly something happened to Quentin in the bathtub. That one was shortly, discarded as an untrue, theory, based on the fact that Paul got home after the bathtub. All sorts of other parties can confirm Quentin was still alive after he took a bath.
All right, so I'd like to ask you a couple questions about all these different stories, things she said, things she didn't say. First of all, as we
Welcome
talked
back
about,
to
some
This
of these
Ain't Jury
stories
by
involve
Scan
her
Cat.
kind of casually
evening.
accusing other people or implicating other people, right?
They do, yes.
Do you ever hear from her any reluctance, apprehension, or hesitance about throwing these other innocent people's names out there as potentially being responsible?
No.
Now, remember in the news interview, and I think in the October 12th interview with Special Agent Snyder and Special Agent Solomon, she said some things about being willing to take responsibility if it came to light that she was the one who had done this, right?
She said that, yes.
In all of these statements of hers that you've listened to, the interviews, things witnesses have told you she said, jail communications and so forth, at any point, has she ever actually accepted responsibility for what she's now been convicted of?
No, she hasn't.
Now, she sometime relatively recently wrote a letter to a local news station, right?
Yes, she did.
Do you see in front of you a document marked as States Exhibit 2?
Yes, I do.
Is that a copy of that letter?
It is.
Where did that letter come from?
It is from the WTOC website, and it's signed by Leilani Simon at the bottom.
And WTOC website is
So this is stuff that wasn't admitted at the trial. So we didn't hear about any of these things. We never knew that she had tried to put the blame on the babysitter. We never knew that she had tried to concoct some story about some tub. So right now, this is the state and the first witness here, the lead detective, showing no accountability, right? And these are the type of things that's going to determine, exactly what type of prison sentence she's going to get. This wasn't a death penalty. This was not a death penalty trial. So we're talking life or life with the possibility of parole. It can be possibility of parole after 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. All of these things matter. Let's see.
they're a respected news organization, and they're posting it saying, this is a letter she sent to us.
Yes.
Right? Your Honor, I would offer this into evidence as State's Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
States Exhibit 2 is admitted.
What's the date of this letter?
September 2nd, 2024.
So a little more than a month before trial, maybe 5 weeks before trial.
Yes.
Now that this has been admitted into evidence, could you just read it for us?
Sure.
Yes, please do.
WTOC, there is no factual evidence against me, none. As in no concrete, without a doubt evidence. All the state has is speculation based on circumstantial evidence. Nothing, however, based in fact with undeniable proof/evidence. This is what the state doesn't have. No DNA evidence, no forensic evidence, no eyewitnesses, no murder weapon, no camera/video evidence, no time of death to prove I was at home during tragedy, no cause of death, no proof of any previous abuse to Quentin or other children. I understand if you're skeptical of what I just wrote, but I assure it's the truth, it's fact. I implore you to do your own investigation into my claims to confirm. The public deserves to hear, to know some of the facts of this case, and not only speculation based in circumstantial evidence. I firmly believe that if the investigators weren't mainly focused on me from day one of the investigation, that they may have found the evidence they lack and therefore the actual murderer. They, in quotations, the state, are attempting to railroad me instead of admitting they have accused the wrong person for the past almost 2 years. Leilani Simon.
Thank you.
Now, what do y'all think? Pause. Y'all know I'm gonna give my commentary. So with that letter writing out before the trial, right, to the news people, what did that letter include? That letter didn't have anything about I love my child, I'm grieving the loss of my child. Instead of focusing on me, I would want to have justice for my child. None of the type of sentiments that a young mother who lost her child in such a violent way would say. It's all very, very self-serving. Right? It's all self-serving and all about, and to me, is really when she talks about give this to the public, she's worried about how she's coming across, what people think of her. Who don't know you giving your commentary, Lady Steph? That speaks a lot to her mindset and her character. Her character is piss poor, okay? Piss poor. Horrible.
Is it fair to say that in that letter, she's kind of holding herself out as like a detached commentator upon the state of the evidence, and not like, the person who was there and threw him in the dumpster and knows exactly what happened?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about her behavior during the investigation. And, a lot of her behavior in the investigation was charged in the indictment in the form of false statements. I want to ask you about a couple of things that did not come into evidence at trial.
Okay.
The first is something that occurred on October 5th, right? That's day one.
Yes.
That is when the defendant, Paul Simon, and Daniel Youngkin were at the Chatham County Police Department for a fairly long period of time for a series of interviews, right?
Yes.
Was there, and that was at a time very early on where she's representing the police, that Quentin has been abducted and she doesn't know whether he's safe or not, dead or alive, right?
Yes.
Was there a point where she was captured on camera asking Paul whether he had any weed to smoke when they left there?
Yes, there was.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So after everyone's individual interviews were concluded, my team was trying to arrange transport to get them back home. We had all three of them in the interview room together. During that time, Leilani asked Paul if he has marijuana at the house.
Now, moving forward from that, another incident that wasn't introduced into evidence at trial, the Stingrays incident. Okay.
Okay.
That was on October 18th, right?
Yes, it was.
And that,
Oh, yeah, this is going to be so interesting. So they finna talk about the Stingray incident, right? And this is what I kind of touched on it. I'm finna try to, while she's talking about it, I'm going to see if I can pull up the pictures. But I'm going to let them tell y'all. But I got the pictures. Let me pull them up. Let's listen. But they didn't talk about this during the trial, but I knew about it. And I told y'all, I touched on it very briefly. Okay, let's continue. Let me find the pictures.
that is the day that the Chatham County Police Department announced that they believed Quentin to be dead, to be located in the landfill, right?
Yes, it was.
Can you tell us about the Stingrays incident? First of all, let me ask you this. Have you reviewed video footage from Stingrays depicting the defendant and her activities there?
Yes.
And did you interview or talk to her waiter that day, a young man by the name of Zach?
Yes, I have.
Give us the broad contours of what happened at Stingrays based on that review.
Yeah. So like you said, November 18th is when our social media liaison announced to the public that we were looking for Quentin in the landfill.
November.
October 18th.
Okay.
Yeah, excuse me. And on that day, my team received notice that Leilani and her family had gone out to Stingrays, which is a bar restaurant on Tybee, and that they were out there partying. I interviewed Zach Anderson, who was their waiter at the time, and he told us about her behavior out there, how she was flirtatious. Everyone was drinking, cheersing, and seeming to have a very good time.
And he said that she consumed numerous alcoholic beverages, right?
Yes.
That she became noticeably, I guess if not drunk, at least tipsy or something along those lines.
Yes.
And that she was behaving in a flirtatious manner towards him.
Yes.
Hey, Nietzsche, welcome back to the
In her
Little Jury
November
Box.
21 interview, the day of the final interview on the day of her arrest, you brought up the Stingrays incident, right?
Yes, I did.
And that was in the context of explaining to her that from your perspective, she had not behaved in a way that comported with what she was saying happened, that she's a victim of an abduction, right?
Yes.
And did she tell you a lie in that interview about what had happened at Stingrays?
Yes, she did.
And what was that?
That she was not consuming alcohol that night.
Is it fair to say that we did not charge all of the lies that she told you as false statements in this indictment?
We did not.
I'd like to ask you about one more aspect of the defendant's behavior during the investigation, okay? At some point during the investigation, she entered some kind of drug and substance abuse rehabilitation program, right?
Yes,
Oh, I didn't know
This
that.
was an inpatient deal
it was.
where you lived there.
Yes.
Yep.
And was she kicked out at some point?
That's what we were told. Yes.
And when was she kicked out?
November 21st.
That's the day of the final interview and her arrest?
Yes, it is.
Why was she kicked out of rehab?
We were told it was fraternization with the other people in rehab.
Specifically male
Yes.
patients at the facility?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to ask you a little bit about her behavior during her pretrial incarceration, like after she's arrested, but before trial, okay?
Okay.
She was housed the entire time at the Chatham County.
Hey, Jill, welcome back to the Leilani Jury Box. No worries. Glad to see you.
While there, is it fair to say she's had interactions with a number of men who are not incarcerated at that facility?
Yes, she has.
Both over the phone and electronically otherwise,
Yes.
messages and so forth.
Yes.
Has she maintained a long-running pen pal relationship with a child molester incarcerated in the state of Wisconsin?
Yes,
What?
she has.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Girl, I know you
I'm
lying.
not sure the exact start date. It was well over a year ago when they began communicating, and they regularly send letters to each other. They refer to each other as husband and wife.
And more recently, has she begun having
Welcome back to the Leilani
video
Jury Box. You gotta
visits,
chill.
remote video visits with a convicted felon from the Boston area, a man?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
That's one of the more recent ones. He's an individual that reached out to her saying that he wanted to be friends with her and gives her money on her books, and they have started video visitation.
And separate and apart from her interactions with those two men, has she also been accepting money put onto her books from other men around the country or even around the world, perhaps?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
There's been a few throughout the last 2 years. The most recent one, the one that she began video chatting, that's one that's saying he's going to regularly put money on her books.
So based on the on your review of the letters, the video visits, maybe phone calls as well, does she seem to be enjoying and encouraging the male attention that she's received?
Welcome to the Leilani Jury Box, Jill, and you gotta chill, and you gotta chills, meaning me. Happy Saturday to you guys. Thank you for coming. So what we learned so far, and this woman not even finishing, is she ain't showed no accountability. She was only self-serving when she wrote to the news people, still declaring her innocence. The day they found her body, or parts of the body, in the landfill, she went bar hopping with her family. They were shooting tequila shots, ran up a $200 tab. I got that from the news article. She got kicked out of the rehab they tried to put her in while she was in jail for flirting and trying to start relationships in rehab. And we found out just now that she was writing love letters to a couple of known convicts and pedos. Okay? All of this didn't happen, and this was all her behavior, her mindset, her priority while facing trial for unaliving her 20-month-old baby. who, if you was to believe her before she got convicted, she say she didn't have nothing to do with this. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And you know what? I'm going to just say this, put that for food for thought, right? Food for thought. What does she have that's very eerily similar to the trial we watching? Wait a minute, wait. Very similar to, that's not the trial we watching now. I'm mixing up the trials because I watch other trials too, but not with y'all. Okay, let me continue. I watched too many trials at one time.
Since being arrested.
Yes, she does.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions now about her behavior during trial. Okay. We've touched on her behavior during the investigation and her behavior during pretrial incarceration. But let's talk about the trial, okay?
Okay.
Do you remember an incident during the trial where I brought up the fact that to my eye, she could be seen visibly mouthing during Talia McCarty's testimony, either something along the lines of "that's a fucking lie" or "she's a fucking liar" or something like that?
Yes.
Have you gone back and reviewed some of the broadcasted footage of this trial?
Yes, I have.
And have you located that incident in the footage available online?
Yes.
And has it been clipped into like a 1.5 minute clip and placed on a disc?
Yes, it has.
Is that what's contained on the disc in front of you, marked States Exhibit 3?
Yes, it is.
And can you tell us, well, at this time, Your Honor, I'd offer that into evidence in States Exhibit 3.
I don't care, Judge. No objection.
Okay, exhibit 3, is it what?
Now, Your Honor,
I didn't know we
intended
was gonna get to see
publish
the evidence and everything, y'all.
people and equipment over here where I would set up my computer. So I'm not going to do that, but it will be in evidence for the court to review should the court.
Oh man, I want to
that
see
you do
it.
that. Without the ability to readily play it here, can I just ask you to describe what is depicted in that clip?
Sure. You can hear Talia in the background talking about Leilani's referencing Bubba and Quentin and how Quentin looks like Bubba. And then during that, it shows Leilani's face during the trial, and she's saying, "That's a fucking lie." And
did she appear to you to be talking to her lawyer when she said that?
No.
Now, did you keep an eye on the defendant throughout the trial to one degree or another?
Yes.
And did you have the opportunity to observe when, if at all, she displayed any visible emotion versus when she did not?
Yes.
Pause. So let's see let's see if they gonna say the same things we talked about. We talked about that almost every day when we was watching this trial. We pointed out the fact of how she just sat there so detached when they showed the baby what's it called? Skull fragments, not a tear, no emotion. She just sat there just looking as though it wasn't her baby. We talked about the fact that when she showed more emotion during the opening statements, when they showed that supposed to be a suicide video letter that she wrote trying to get her boyfriend attention. She cried almost uncontrollably. She showed more emotion when Danny, her ex-boyfriend, was on the stand. So let's see. I want to see if they picked up the same. If this detective say the same thing we talked about.
What is your sense of the point in the trial where she displayed the most clear, visible emotion? I mean, aside from what we just talked about, but I guess the emotion of sadness or being upset.
I would say the verdict would be where she was more visually upset.
What about when Quentin's dismembered foot or pieces of his skull?
See, I just
were up
said
on the
that.
screen in front of her, and she was looking right at him.
She didn't appear to be upset.
Now, I'd like to ask you a couple questions about, about the money associated with the landfill search, okay?
Okay.
It's not really what this case is all about, but I do want to just put a couple things on the record about this. Have you reviewed
Yeah, that
an
looks
email
that was
and
so
talked to some
weird.
people to get a sense for how much money the landfill search effort cost the Chatham County Police Department and the FBI, and therefore, the taxpayers?
Yes.
That includes, those expenses include things like travel and lodging for some of the FBI agents who came in from out of town to participate, right?
Yes.
Equipment, boots, Tyvek suits, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, it does.
Heavy equipment rentals,
Yes.
excavators and things like that.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that also overtime pay, right? There's a lot of overtime pay for people.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the cost of the landfill search appears to far exceed, I'll say, $500,000?
Yes, it does.
Now, I'd like to ask you a couple questions about the impact of Quentin's murder on the community. Okay. As the lead detective for the Chatham County Police Department, have you had the opportunity to get a sense for the community impact of this case?
I would say so, yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
I know my office, as well as the district attorney's office, has received phone calls from people thanking them and us for, finding justice and finding his body. I've had several people reach out to me to say how much it means that we were able to find him, really more than anything.
People in the community took an interest in this case, right?
Yes, they did.
And a lot of people seem to have come to care about Quentin that never even met him. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about the effect, the impact on some of the police officers involved. In this.
He was so cute.
And we don't need to go into this in great detail, but is it accurate to say that a number of police officers sought out counseling services after either having been involved in the initial response to the house or having been involved in the landfill search, or both?
Yes, it's accurate.
And do you know some of those people?
Yes, I do.
One of the people in the community who was affected by this this case was Donna Johnson, right?
Yes.
And can you remind us who Donald is and what his role in the investigation and in the trial was?
Yeah, he was our point of contact for the landfill off of Little Neck. He was there with us every step of the way until we found Quentin.
Has this whole thing had an effect on Donald?
Him and his coworkers, yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Donald and I have had several conversations about what it's like for them to still work out there, knowing that part of Quentin's remains are still in the landfill. He and his team have had a tough time still working there.
Now, have they, has he or have they done anything to memorialize Quentin's memory out at the landfill?
Yes, they have.
Can you tell us about what that is?
In one of the areas that we had set up for the landfill search, Donald and everyone at Waste Management set up a large memorial for Quentin. It has a headstone, flowers, and a photograph of him.
And who paid for that?
The landfill.
Do you see in front of you, I think it's 3 images that are marked as State's Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Are those pictures showing the memorial that you just talked about?
Yes, it does.
Could you hold those up and for the judge and just kind of walk through what we're looking at in these pictures?
So this is the plaque right here. It's a marble stone plaque, and they've done some landscaping around it. This is a better view of the plaque. It has a photograph of Quentin, and then they have nice flower bed around it.
And then the last picture is just kind of a closer view.
Yes.
One moment, please.
Damn, they purchased a very nice headstone for
I have
that
no further
baby.
questions, Your Honor.
All right.
Like a real, like a
Mr.
actual
Hilliard, Mr.
headstone, like a
Purse.
family would buy. Pause. You know, it's just like, can you imagine? It's one thing to say, yeah, the whole town was affected, right? And then can you imagine, you know, you go to work every day, you go to work at this landfill, it's a stinky, hard, underappreciated job. You work literally in trash all day, right? And now, on top of that already grinding job, you got to remember and have in mind that you just found the remains of a baby there. And can you imagine it now? All of a sudden, you thinking about what else is out here? How many other bodies been out here? Am I picking up bodies today? Am I dumping off bodies? You know what I'm saying? That's a lot.
Detective Lemons,
And
you've had
she-
multiple theories in
and
this
she up in there
case
writing
when you first got it
love letters
of
to
what
people.
happened.
Yes.
Okay, were all of those theories true?
No.
Or, okay. So when you discarded the theories that weren't, does that make you a liar?
No, they were based off of evidence that we found.
Okay, so when you're throwing out a theory, doesn't necessarily make you a liar if that theory doesn't pan out, does it?
It does.
It does or it does not.
Restate your question, please.
If you're throwing out a theory and the theory doesn't
Exactly,
pan out,
Winter.
it doesn't mean
And
you were a
Silky.
liar when
Me
you
too.
threw out a theory, does it?
Exactly.
Now, Mr. Dean asked you a bunch of questions. Simon's been convicted of this charge, but let's go ahead and, since Mr. Dean asked the question, do you exactly know the manner or method in which Quentin Simon died?
Here he go.
Whether or not there was any DNA evidence that showed how he died or who the perpetrator was?
No.
Okay. So all of these statements that Mr. Dean had you run through are factually correct, are they not?
They are.
Okay. So again, it's not a misstatement, was it?
No.
Okay. Now let's talk about the other evidence, the evidence that Mr. Dean just elicited too. I understand we're here, the verdict's been rendered, but does asking to smoke weed tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Okay. Does getting drunk at Stingrays tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Okay. Does having an electronic relationship with a child molester from Wisconsin tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Okay. Does fraternizing with someone in drug treatment tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Okay. Does a criminal trespass conviction tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Okay. So disagreeing with what Talia McCarty said, saying she's a liar, does that tell you how Quentin Simon died?
No.
Lady Steph says, and I have to pause. Lady Steph said, because I was thinking about it, right? Lady Steph says, oh my God, I know he has to do his job, but how can he even cross-examine her? Just rush your case and go home. You know that, and I get where you're coming from, because I say, okay, here he goes, right? But this is exactly the type of attorney I would want to defend me. This is exactly the type of defense attorney I would desire. He is swinging for his client at all. He don't care. So far, we didn't see him even during the trial doing his best to get this woman a defense. Even now in the sentencing, right? So it's kind of like, what's the word? Unappealing to us as we sit here and just watch it. But if we think about it, what if I was sitting there at the defense table? This is the type of guy you want, not somebody who just throw in the towel, right? Because he just said all that stupid stuff about his client, like all of it's perfectly okay.
I'm just curious, how do any of these things add to aggravation?
I think it shows her state of mind during it all and her lack of responsibility and disdain for her child.
Okay. And that's your opinion, correct?
It is.
And that's the opinion that has just been driving this case since October 5th of 2022, isn't it?
No.
All the questions I have, Jeff.
Anything further?
Not for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, Detective, you may step down.
Right, he did lose, right?
Mr. Dean, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I understand that Talia McCarter would like to address the court, so we would call her now.
I wonder why they showing her face. This is a 16-year-old babysitter or 17. They didn't show her face during the
The
trial.
evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, ma'am.
But we heard her voice and her testimony, but we didn't see her face. Her and her mama babysit the baby.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. This is not like the trial in the sense that I don't have a bunch of questions prepared for you at this point, okay?
Yes, sir.
This is your opportunity to tell the judge what Quentin meant to you and how this has all impacted you, and I suppose your family more generally. So have you thought about what you would like to say to the judge about Quentin?
Quentin was like a little brother to me. Quentin meant a lot. Just seeing him smile every day, waking up next to him, he would stay at the house a lot. Missing him every day, not waking up to see Quentin, not being able to go get Quentin no more. It's a lot. My family loved him a lot. I missed him walking around the house with cheese in his hand saying bubbles. I miss him just lighting up the room. I miss looking at his little bow legs just run across the kitchen. So it's justice.
Let me ask you this, and this is not something that we've talked about before, but it does occur to me to ask you the question.
Mhm.
If Leilani had just come to you and your family and said, look, I can't handle all three of these children, will you take this one? What do you think your mom would have said to that?
My mom would have took Quentin in a heartbeat. There would have been no hesitation. Quentin, it was like he was blood to us. It was a connection with Quentin. It was a connection with all the kids. But Quentin, my mom would have never said no or nothing. She would have just took him in a heartbeat if she could have.
One moment, please, okay? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, sir.
They was doing everything they could to get Quentin over to their house.
You may step down.
Remember the testimony?
Just a moment.
They kept that
Ms.
baby
Talia?
over there.
Okay. All right, Mr. Dean, you may call your
Remember,
next witness.
Talia say she saw Leilani push Quentin in the pool without no floats or anything on,
State rest.
and punch him in his chest.
All right, turning to the defense, Mr. Hilliard, Mr. Purse.
Okay, we're gonna get to hear from her
I'd like to
mama.
call Paul Simon, Judge.
Oh Lord, not Paul, the
Mr.
brother.
Simon present.
Child.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So help me God.
Have a seat, please.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Simon.
How are you doing today?
Mr. Simon, you understand why we're here, correct? Yeah. And I've asked you to come forward and speak in mitigation about your sister Leilani.
Mhm.
Okay. We're not here to argue with the verdict. The verdict's been rendered, but we are here to try and basically tell the court about Leilani. And so you've asked to speak.
Mhm.
And is there anything you'd like to tell the court before the court imposes a sentence, Paul?
So growing up, Leilani is my closest sibling. Growing up, she was always there for me whenever I needed her. Whenever I needed advice about anything, didn't matter what it was, she would always give it to me to the best of her ability. So, I mean, I love her. She's my sister. And, I love Quentin. That's my nephew. I love him just like he was my own blood. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna sit here and live in the past when all I have is days ahead of me. And I'm gonna keep moving forward.
Okay. And with Leilani, whenever you lived in the house when this was going on, correct? How was she with the children at that point?
She was always pretty fair to them. I never saw her hit them. She would yell at them, but I mean, everybody gets frustrated. So,
Right.
I mean, I never really saw her hit them. You know, when Quentin and Zane and Sky, when they were all outside, she was out there watching them, making sure that none of them got too close to the pool. At a certain point, Zane would finally put his feet into the pool without throwing a tantrum, you know. So I never saw no abuse, never saw no bruises, besides from maybe Quentin running through the house and falling. I mean, can't help that. He was bow-legged. I mean, he could barely walk as it was.
You were
But-
close to Quentin, weren't you?
I was. He would come up to me and put his arms over my legs, and I just sit there and bounce him. 20, 30 minutes later, it's still going. You know,
That part, I think he meant like
wear
his
me
own
out. He beat
son.
me up.
Well, that being said, do you have an eye towards what you think the court should do with Leilani? I mean, the court's limited to either life with or without parole. And what are you here asking the court to do with Leilani's sentence?
In my opinion, she needs to spend time in prison, but at the same time, she's still extremely young. And regardless of how it looks, at the end of the day, she's still my sister. And I feel like even though she was convicted of what she was convicted of, she still deserves a chance, even if it's later in her life, to have an opportunity to live her life still.
And that's what you're asking for,
Mhm.
correct? It's life with parole, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put words in your
Mhm.
mouth. I just want to be clear, okay?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything else you wanted to tell the court about your sister?
Just I love you, sister. I hope you make it through it.
And Mr. Dean might have some questions for you, Paul. Okay?
That gotta be a tough situation. I would hate to have to be in something like this. Like seriously. Or to have put my family into something like this.
Simon, you may step down.
You know? Let me see.
Hill.
I don't know how I would feel about that because you still love your family member even through they misdeeds. They say even if she was found not guilty, she would literally have to move to Timbuktu to get any peace in that town. Exactly. Winter says, although I don't agree, but that's the most intelligent thing he has said. Right, because that is his sister. You know what I'm saying? So what you supposed to do? Automatically just stop loving your family member because they did something wrong, even if it's horrific? You know, you may want to maybe sever ties, but do you just stop? Just all of a sudden, boom, I don't love you anymore. You know, I'm just real grateful I had never been through nothing like this and don't want to ever go through nothing like this. Ever. Not even close. Not even a little bit.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, ma'am.
State your name, please, ma'am.
My name is Kimberly Hill.
Okay, and Ms. Hill, how do you know Ms. Leilani Simon?
Me and Leilani met when we were young, 15, 16. I was 15, she was 16.
Ms. Hill, I can tell you on a soft. I'm gonna ask you to scoot up a little bit to the mic.
Is this better?
That is much better.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to speak up. They're recording everything we say and do.
I completely
All
understand.
right. So
We
you-
met when I was 15 and she was 16. We met through a mutual friend.
Mhm.
We were both very young, it was before kids. And she was so kind. I was very clueless and dumb at 15. I came from a very sheltered home, and she could have taken advantage of me very easily. But she didn't. Instead, she showed me everything. I mean, she showed me all around Savannah. She showed me how to act and how to talk in a setting that it was very awkward as a kid. She really helped me through all of that. And she was very kind to me. Like I said, she had the opportunity to take advantage of me, and she didn't. We were friends for a couple of years, and I was away for about 2 years, a year and a half or so. So we didn't really get to talk that much. And by the time I reconnected, she had her first baby, and we would hang out quite often. She was always concerned about him. Always, every time I saw her, whether it was the first child or after the second child, it was always, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. I'm doing better. I'm working towards something better. She always made an effort, and you could tell that she cared, even if she made the wrong decisions.
And you understand why we're here today, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what's your most recent interaction on this, Simon?
About 6 months to a year prior to everything that had happened, I did distance myself just because I could tell we were going in different directions in life.
You can be honest. What did you mean by that?
She was hanging around the wrong crowd, from what I presumed, and I was going to college. I was getting my degree.
Okay.
I was working in a very professional setting, and I just didn't have time to go all the way out. It was very far where I was living. I was in Savannah. I can't remember where it was, but it was about an hour and a half near Waynesboro. It was pretty far. So it was just very difficult to see her, and I also didn't want to get caught up in anything just in case. I wasn't aware of anything, but I didn't want to be aware of anything if there was.
And that was probably, if not correct, 2021, early
Yeah, like
2022.
late 2020, early 2021 is probably around the last time that we had hung out.
Have you reconnected with her since then, since this all transpired, or no?
No, sir.
So basically, your experience was as teenagers for the most part.
From 15 to 2021.
Okay, so for about 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Just trying to nail it down.
Of course.
And you understand what we're here for, but that's the person you remember, is that
Yes, sir.
kind, gentle soul.
Even though everything happened, it wouldn't be right for me to not come here and speak on what I experienced.
And that's all the questions I have. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
I hope you're doing okay.
And Mr. D might have some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Just give me 1 second.
Well, that's nice of her, but
You may step down.
that's real nice, that's real nice for everything it accounts for. But the one thing I got from this witness is this is how exactly I want my kids to be, right? But notice that, hey, this person going in a whole different direction. I'm about to go in. Let me go ahead and separate myself from them. That might have been the best choice this girl ever made.
Mr. Howell?
This is a stepfather.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Happy Saturday, Daniel. Thank you for coming through, Daniel.
State your name, please, sir.
Thomas Howell.
Okay. Mr. Howell, how are you related to Miss?
I am Leilani's stepfather.
And how long have you been her stepfather?
Well, about going on 12 years.
So not like 2 years ago
No,
or 3
sir.
years ago. So it's been a while.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you helped raise her, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're married to Billy Joe, just
Yes,
to be
sir.
clear, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Danny and Leilani and Quentin and Zane and Sky were all living with y'all in October of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at that point in time, either you and Billy Joe were working or you were at home, right?
Yes, sir.
And just to be clear, how long would y'all be gone when you're out working?
Well, at that time I was working in Anderson, South Carolina. And so some weekends I'd have to work weekends. So I just stayed there the whole week. The other weekends, when I did only work, we work usually our standard hours is 4 10s. So I'd come home on the weekends and then go back Monday morning.
So it was normally like 4 on, 3
Yes,
off.
sir.
Okay. And that's what I was trying to get to. So you'd be gone for 4 days and back for 3 days.
Yes, sir. Monday through Thursday. I'd come back Thursday night.
Right. So, and you understand we're here for sentencing today,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And you also understand the sentencing is limited. I mean, it's either going to be life with parole or life without parole,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And I'm asking you to tell the court what you'd like to tell the court about Leilani in fashioning that sentence.
Well, Leilani was very smart. In school, she could she could pretty much take a test and not study for it and pass it. I mean, that's how smart she was. And like I say, when you're not on drugs, you're a total different person. And Leilani just got into drugs, and it just, I guess maybe you could say, made her somebody different. And pretty much all I'm asking is that she have a chance one day to come out in the world and I understand, but nobody knows what happened to that young. Nothing's been proven what happened to her, to him. And I just would ask her one day she'd be able to walk amongst us. I mean, I won't be here. I mean, I'm up in age, but that she'd at least be given one more chance in life instead of just putting her away and throwing away the key.
Anything further you want to add, Mr. Howe?
No, sir.
Mr. Dean, may I ask you a question?
All right.
Okay.
Sorry, I have no questions. You ready?
You may sit down, Mr. Howe.
Thank you.
Next is Jackie Madden, Judge.
Jackie Madden.
I'm waiting to hear from her mama, okay? Because nobody's saying anything about the fact that her mother, Quentin's grandmother, actually had custody of Quentin and his older brother Zane. Nobody is talking about that. So I'm really hoping when her mom hits the stand that somebody asks about that. Because I just want to know. Hey, Miss Hatcher Prince. Welcome back to the Leilani Jury Box. Lady Steph say, can Quentin get one more chance? Girl, get out my mind. I thought about that when he said that, right? And especially like when the brother Paul said, hoping she can get another chance at life. Baby. Exactly, Winter. This woman like a little midget. She look like a dwarf.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
And Ms. Madden, once you have a seat, would you spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Oh, yes, Jackie, Jackie, Madden, Madden.
All right. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. How do you know Ms. Simon, Ms. Madden?
Biologically, I'm her aunt, but I raised her about half of her life. I love her like she's my own daughter.
And what years did you raise her?
From 2002, gosh, till she was about 9, and then she went to live with her mom, and then again when she was 11.
Until about when?
That was a little better than a year, and then she went back to stay with her mom.
And during that time frame, tell me what you remember about her.
Oh gosh. I've written it all out. I don't know if it's appropriate to read it now or later.
She looked like her
That's
Amy.
completely up to you. Whatever you got to say it now.
This
She
is
looked
the
like her.
easiest. Obviously, I have a different relationship with Leilani. I know a different Leilani than what is depicted, than what is splattered all over everywhere. My husband and I raised Leilani for about half of her life. Her younger brother was with us the majority of his life. We are blessed to have her in our lives. Because she was in our lives full time, we were able to see a Leilani that has not been depicted over the last 2 years. Leilani was happy, full of life, still is. Unfortunately, she's not able to show it right now. She has the biggest, beautiful smile. She's beautiful inside and out. We watched her protect her younger brother. Gosh, she protected Paul like there's no tomorrow. She would protect him against others, whatever that took. She helped him with school. She was happy to help interpret him when needed. He had speech difficulties, and sometimes was difficult to understand, but being just a little better than a year apart, she could sometimes understand, and she had better language skills than he did. She did very well in school. She attended a Montessori school for her younger elementary school years, which requires independent learning, responsibility for a student's coursework. It requires the ability to make decisions about how one completes their weekly assigned work. Her progress was similar to that of her classmates. Her teachers rarely had concerns with her academic abilities. As a teenager in middle school, she experienced bullying. Although this was concerning, she still excelled. She was proud to be successful in school and took ownership of her responsibilities as a student. Does all of this mean that she was a perfect student? Absolutely not. Does it mean that she didn't make mistakes as a young adult, as a teenager, as a child? No, it does not. We all do. We've all gone through that. We know what it's like to be a child. We know what it's like to make mistakes. We do it as adults all the way up until the time we pass away. She was independent. She did her chores without being directed to. She was responsible. She eagerly fixed dinner if her mom worked late, and I did experience that, so it's not hearsay. She could follow directions, both written and oral, if needed to prepare a meal. She was a good cook, and she loved it. I've watched her and my sister come together and have the best time doing so. They'd laugh, be silly, and have fun. The end product was a great meal. It was never a chore or work for her. She was always eager and sometimes sheepish or reserved to learn new things. She loved to help others. My mom, her grandmother, always needed help around the house. She would go help her often, several days a week. There was a 40 to 45-minute drive one way, but that didn't matter to her. Sometimes my mom gave her gas money, but
She
not
drove,
always.
hold on.
Leilani would go.
She drove 45 minutes to 204, which was code for her dope dealer. So we know she'll drive 45 minutes back one way, back and forth. Okay, we know that. Lady Steph say all this blah, blah, blah. She made a calculated decision to end the life of her son, and then after that, dispose of him in a very horrendous way. No mercy. Ooh-wee. Lady Steph say no parole opportunity. Better Boop say, well, they can put her in the kitchen in the prison. Very apropos. Okay, give her kitchen duty.
Regardless,
period.
She loves her.
That'll take out the trash, right?
The grandsons, however, they're just too busy. They had their own lives. They rarely went over there. So this helped increase my mother's and Leilani's bond, as Leilani had the most time with my parents. Now we get to Leilani as a mom, and this is what I saw. I didn't see her every day. It was on occasion. But this is what I saw every
all
time
these
I saw
disclaimers.
her. Leilani loved and displayed love for all three of her children equally. I never saw her treat any of them differently. I never saw her discipline them by means other than verbal redirection. They, the children, were never hit, grabbed, shoved, hollered at, talked down to or about, called names. They were never disciplined by any derogatory means. The children were clean within reason. They're boys. Boys are dirty. They do it quickly. Boys climb. They fall down, and sometimes they fall up. They play hard and sometimes rough. All these things make for dirty boys who often have boo-boos, owies, and bruises. I've raised 3 of them, so I'm very well versed in that. They weren't filthy in a manner upon which they appeared uncared for or abused. The boys were healthy in appearance. I never saw them malnourished or starving. Quentin, though, with his beautiful soul, beautiful smile, and lovable legs, loved food. He always tried anything new without hesitation and liked most of it. He was a happy child, and he loved to eat, and it was never because he was unfed. That boy just loved to eat. I speak a lot of the boys because I had the most time with them. We only had 5 months with their sister due to this tragedy. The little I saw of her with her mom, she was completely in love with her. She was so proud to be her mom. She was proud of and loved all 3 of her children equally. She never treated any of them differently, even when they had extra challenges. The oldest definitely had extra challenges and could be a little difficult to take care of sometimes. Of course, she had experience with that too, because so does Paul. He was diagnosed with autism when he was a young child. So we had lots of challenges there. There's a lot of conversation in and out of the courts displaying Leilani as a monster who mistreated and neglected her children, especially Quentin. I never saw neglect, but she would pass off some of their care on to others from time to time. The children never resisted going to or with their mom. They loved her and loved being with her. Regardless of what the media and testimony says, I have seen the children go into hysterics upon drop-off at the babysitter's house. This happened the day after Sky was born. We were instructed to take the kids over there. When we did, immediately I pulled up in the driveway and both children went to crying. No, 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 they said. No, and cried the entire time.
Lady, so now she trying to, I don't know, but right now it sounds like she trying to badmouth or infer or allude to the fact like the kids didn't like going across the street to the babysitter. And like as though the babysitter was something bad about them. Child.
As I dropped them off, it broke my heart. Literally broke my heart that I had to leave them there knowing that this was not the place they wanted to be. And we don't have a long-term relationship with these children. They see them every day. We don't. We see them 3-4 times a year, and that's it. But they didn't want to stay there. They wanted to go back home with us. The last time I saw Quentin,
There's some tissues if you need them, Miss Madden.
Baby, she putting on for her city 3-4 times a year.
the last time was as
Easter,
Miss Carter's daughter.
Christmas.
I don't remember which one it was when I dropped them off. She was taking Quentin into the house. He was the last one to go in, and he was just looking at me crying with his hands out, wanting not to go, to come back with us. That is the biggest heartbreak I will live with the rest of my life.
I don't see no tears falling. I don't see not a teardrop.
Because it helps to show that all is not as has been depicted. All of this may seem that I'm biased or expressing or portraying Leilani as a completely different person than she is perceived to be. I'm not biased. I will tell you when you're doing wrong. Ask my sister. We have fought battle after battle after battle over the years over Leilani and Paul. You see, I did not get to see a Leilani who used drugs. I've heard she did, but I never saw any evidence of it.
They didn't took the mama out to court.
My experiences of time with Leilani only showed the Leilani I knew from the time she was a baby, as a toddler, as a child, as a preteen, as a teen, as my daughter, and as a mom. None of which was abnormal. It was all the normal things you would have growing up in life. I've already described these experiences, and they did not ever show a Leilani who was unworthy or a drug user. When Leilani moved in with her mom, my love for her never changed. I still saw her as my daughter. Sadly, for me, I chose to simply be an aunt. I chose to let my sister and her mom, chose to let my sister be her mom, not by blood, but by love, care, support, bond, and everything a mom is supposed to be. I knew I had to do this, otherwise Leilani would not get to truly form that bond that she and my sister needed, wanted, and were blessed to form. This was the kind of bond, a beautiful bond, that I saw with Leilani and her own children. I do wish, though, that I had maintained a better bond with her that showed her how much I loved her, because I do. Fast forward to October 5th, 2022. This date and the events and news to follow completely cripples my heart. I searched and searched for a way to describe my feelings about the loss of our precious, loving, beautiful Quentin. After a while, I finally figured it out. I was crippled, completely crippled. Crippled with fear of what was to come, anxiety, uncertainty, lack of understanding and comprehension of how such a thing could happen in our family. After all, as they say, this is what you see in the movies. Hurt, sorrow, dismay, anger. I was and am angry at the fact that drugs caused the tragedy to happen in our family. Drugs took Quentin and Leilani from us. Quentin will forever be in my heart, my thoughts, and loved by me, but his life, his body, his love will never be seen or fulfilled due to the influence of drugs. As for Leilani, her life will never be the same. Angry that even though Leilani and Danny were both present in the room with Quentin and the other two children, only Leilani was charged and convicted with the murder of our precious little Quentin. Angry that there's no evidence provided by the prosecution or otherwise presented during the trial that 100% proves that she was the one who murdered and disposed of Quentin's body. Angry that they both, Leilani and Danny, provided a setting that was dangerous for the children. They both used drugs. They both were under the influence on October 4th and 5th. Both parents, whom had altered abilities to provide proper care for these three children. Drugs led to two parents with altered abilities to function with clear and responsible behavior, rational decision-making, that caused the death and loss of our Quentin. Angry that drugs took away Quentin, his siblings, and Leilani from our lives, from our family. Therefore, the only way to simplify the way my head and heart could process this into a single definition was, it's crippled. This will never go away. Now, all of this said, do I think there should be consequences for Leilani? Absolutely, yes. I do feel that she needs counseling. I do feel that she needs to complete a long-term multi-step drug rehab program. I do feel that she needs to complete multiple parenting classes. I've seen the difference that counseling and parenting classes have made for my sister. I know this isn't about my sister, but my sister affects Leilani. My sister, is definitely a better person, a better judge of character, and decision maker. I struggle to say jail time for Leilani because my heart struggles. My heart struggles to accept this as reality for my child, my daughter, my niece, my nephew. My love is never ending for her and her children, including Quentin. The loss of a child is the worst hurt anyone can ever feel. My own daughter, born August 2nd, 1989, at 3 months premature, weighing 1 pound 14
Girl.
died on December 25th, 1989. She was born with chronic lung disease, which gave us limited time with her. I've never in my life felt such a loss, such hurt. I bring that up because my heart hurts for Leilani as she will surpass the feelings I endured as a result in the manner which she lost her son.
She didn't lose her
This will
son.
be a permanent
She did away with her
imprisonment
son.
for her. It'll never go away. It'll eat at her the rest of her life. Whether she is responsible for this or Danny is responsible for this, it doesn't matter. She has lost her son. She has lost her 3 children. No matter if the other 2 are alive or not, she has lost them. And she will never be able to get over that ever. This will torture her for the rest of her life. As a Christian, I have to forgive her, and I wholeheartedly do. It is not because I'm a Christian, it's because I do. Does that mean I can forget? Absolutely not. Does it mean it won't hurt? No. Does that mean it changes the situation and the blame? Absolutely not. I do blame her and Danny. Only the 2 of them know what happened that night. The horror that resulted lies on both of them. One is just as guilty as the other, and both should suffer the consequences. The Leilani that I described in here, the Leilani that I know, is not the Leilani that would take the life of her son, that would do this horrible thing.
Hey, Tweety girl, happy Saturday.
Miss Madden, just to perfect the record.
Hope you have a good
kept saying your
weekend.
sister. I want to be clear. You're talking about Miss Howell, correct?
I am, yes.
And you understand the judge is bound by only 2 sentences, okay? It can only be life without parole or life with parole. And to be clear on that as well, you're asking the court to impose a life with parole sentence, correct?
Parole would be great, but it would also be good if these other things that I mentioned, the counseling, that I know it's not required. I know, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Girl,
It would
bye.
be great if these things could happen because that will help her. It will help to make her a better person. It will help to take this out of her life. I know prison is coming. That doesn't mean that there's not access to these things. And without these things, it's the likelihood of it changing is limited.
That's all the questions I have. Miss Madden, Mr. Dean might have some questions for you, okay?
No questions.
Thank you. You may sit down, Miss Madden.
But how we even know he should be having custody of her? He might be still doing drugs somewhere. He might be out, Daddy look good next to Leilani. But is he actually a better person, Oh, here come Billy Joe Howell, the mama. This who I've been waiting to hear from.
The information you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. If you would, ma'am, state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Billy Joe Howell. It's Billy, Billie, Joe, J-O, Howell, Howell.
And you are Miss Simon's mother, correct?
Yes.
And you understand what we're here for today, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
And I've asked you to come forward and if you wanted to make a statement on Leilani's behalf, did I not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you understand the court is
She about to read
the
too.
only sentence in the state of Georgia on a murder conviction is either life with or life without parole. You understand that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you still having a chance to address the court and say what's on your mind. Would you like to do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you can either speak naturally, or I can ask you questions, or you can read from a prepared statement if you'd like to, Ms. Howell. Which do you prefer? Not trying to put you on the spot, but you were unsure before.
I am still unsure.
Okay.
I know drugs has taken and had a huge impact on our entire lives. Even as Leilani's childhood, I failed her as a mom. I allowed addiction to take over my life at a young age. And you and your brother were just babies. And you lived with my sister. And I made sure you were okay.
That's honest.
And through those times, it was still really hard on you because you wanted your mom. Just like I know they're going to want their mom. When you come to live with me, I'd already changed my life. And I'd been working really hard. But I had changed my addiction from drugs to work. And I still neglected your needs, your emotional needs. I still wasn't there for you to be your mom. My decisions have played an impact on things that have happened in your life. And there's absolutely nothing I can do to take it away. But I'm working every day, Leilani, every day between counseling and parenting classes and taking other classes because I want to be better. Because I have to believe that it's still not too late and that we still have a chance, regardless of what it looks like. Quentin and the other children changed my life even more. And I was so afraid for you that I never let you fail. I always just scooped right in and fixed everything, which wasn't good for you. It didn't allow you to grow and to be able to make good decisions for yourself. I do take accountability today. Because I should have been a better mom and a better grandma. I should have seen something. You deserved better, and so do your children, all three of them. We might not be able to bring Quentin back, but he needs to come home, and we're all going to hold him one last time. I just want to make it better, Leilani, and I don't know how. All I can do is be here for you and answer every phone call. Talk to you and be there. Listen, really listen. I'm really listening. I love you and we're going to get through it because I raised you to know that I love you unconditionally. And today I do not put conditions on that because I love you. I love you. I love you, Leilani.
Let me ask some questions. Did you ever see, we heard a lot of this during the trial. Was there ever any of this favoritism towards Zane or Sky, or Quentin was the outcast?
No, sir. Never.
Okay. And did you ever see Leilani maltreat or withhold food from Quentin?
Never.
Okay. And you understand the sentence is what?
Yes,
Can be
sir.
life without or life with. And do you think that Leilani is so far gone she should get a life without parole sentence?
No, I don't. Because I wasn't so far gone. I'm not. And I refuse to let somebody make me believe that I am. I may be too late for a lot of things, but I'm here today. I'm here.
So you're asking the court to impose a life with parole sentence, correct?
Yes.
Anything else you want to say before Mr. Dean asks you some questions? That's all the questions I got, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard.
You're her mom.
Yes.
Since day one, you have, and I mean day one of the investigation, when Quentin being reported missing,
Yes.
you have been there for her.
Yes.
You were out of town when it happened, but you came back quickly.
Yes.
You have talked to her a lot, right?
Yes.
But before she was ever arrested and since she's been jailed, right?
Yes.
Is she, you understand the jury has now convicted her of murdering Quentin with intent to kill him. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
12 neutral, unbiased citizens taking a cold look at the evidence have said that is what happened here, beyond a reasonable doubt. You get that, right?
Yes, sir.
In all of the conversations you've had with her, has she ever taken responsibility for doing that?
No, she hasn't. But she has taken responsibility for her drug use.
I know that you've taught her to take responsibility for her actions, because when she says in the news interview, if it comes out that I'm responsible, I'll take responsibility. And she said that separately another time to the police. And I believe that that is coming from your upbringing of her. Do you think that's fair?
Yes, sir, I do.
Has she ever actually done it in this case, though?
No, she hasn't.
She hasn't admitted to you that she killed Quentin.
No, she hasn't.
She hasn't told you how.
No, sir.
She's said things to you about, well, I just don't remember and I'm not sure and I'm trying to piece it together and things like that, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand that the evidence has just not been consistent with that kind of claim? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
That, evidence shows that she made this very calculated drive to the dumpsters, scattered rice cereal in her car, drafted a text message to Danny about what she was supposedly doing on that trip, getting Boragel, told a bunch of lies about it to the police, right?
Yes, sir. I watched the trial.
And none of that is consistent with her just not knowing what happened. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. But even still, despite all the conversations you've had, despite you being her mother, the person that she had to confide in, she hasn't even taken responsibility privately in confidence to you.
No, she hasn't.
Is that frustrating to you?
Yes, it is.
Do you wish she would just come out and admit to you as her mother?
Yes. Yes, I do.
One moment, please. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Mr. Hilliard.
I'm a little confused, Ms. Howell, because being convicted of something doesn't necessarily mean you did it, does it?
No,
Okay.
it doesn't.
So if you're convicted of something you didn't do and you don't admit to it, it doesn't mean you did it. I mean, just because you're convicted of it.
That's correct.
Any questions?
So being convicted of something is not the same thing as admitting something you
This a
actually
lot.
did now, is it?
This a lot.
Okay. So you can be convicted of something you didn't do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the mama
You can be
obviously
acquitted of
believes she
something
did
you
it.
did do, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's all manner of things in between, right?
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I got.
But the mama, you remember that news report? The mama looked upside her head like, this don't even seem real. Her mama don't believe she ain't do this. Period. I bet the what is called the
Any
defense attorney
further
wished he would
witnesses,
never
Mr.
called
Hilliard?
her up to the stand. That's why they didn't call her in the first place. I
have
bet.
to give my client an opportunity to allocate if she wants to, but I think that we've already discussed it. I don't think she wants to testify, Judge, but I think that you have
She need to testify. Hey, Sunshine, we want to hear what she got to say.
Okay, Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon, we've come to the place where you have the opportunity to testify if you choose to do so. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You still have the right to testify, and you also have the right not to testify. Do you understand that?
Yes,
No one can make you testify. And whether or not you testify or make a statement is solely your choice, not your attorney's choice, but your choice. Do you also understand that if you choose to testify and you take the stand, then the state will have an opportunity to ask you questions as well?
yes.
And you understand that we are at the point where there's
She's not gonna
evidence
testify
of
because she don't
aggravation and
want to.
mitigation,
She
and
don't
all
want
of
to tell the
this
truth.
I will consider in determining the sentence today. Do you understand that? as well?
Exactly, Winter.
Ms. Simon, do you wish to testify?
No, ma'am.
She don't got nothing to say.
Thank you. You have a seat.
She don't have nothing to
Just-
say.
We discussed it, Judge, and several times, and if she has any questions, she knows she can ask me again at this point. But other than that, we're ready to move into just argument phase.
Okay. Let's move into argument then. Mr. Dean?
Your Honor, I will reserve.
So to me, you know what I'm saying? It seems to say a whole lot that she didn't have nothing to say. She didn't have nothing to say to the news and to the community when she reported Quentin missing on October 5th, 2022. She never went on the news. She never said, please help me find my baby. I just want my baby back. The only time she went on the news and said something was after they had found the body and people were starting to terrorize her and her family at that house. She didn't show no type of whole bunch of emotions or anything like that or grieving in the trial. And now she convicted. Her family then spoke. People that came and spoke for and on behalf, and she won't even speak on her own behalf. Very telling. Exactly. Went to perfect. Damn, she missed the opportunity to speak and show emotion for her child every time. Hey, Diamond Forever. Let's get to these arguments.
I can approach, Judge.
You certainly may.
One ministerial thing. Early in this case, before I got it, the public defender's office had filed a motion to preserve notes, evidence, and things as such. For the last 2 years, we've tried to figure out why they couldn't release Quentin's remains. It seems that motion is the holdup. I spoke with Mr. Dean last week. I spoke with Ms. Simon. At this point in time, we withdraw that motion from here on out to preserve. That way, the remains can go ahead and be released back to the family for appropriate burial. And whatever orders need to be put on to do that, I will get with Mr. Dean and I will do that.
Before Mr. Hilliard gets into the substance of his argument, may I respond and we can kind of bring this issue to a conclusion?
Yes.
That'd be okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just to clarify, this was during the period of time that the defendant was represented by previous counsel. It was Robert Attridge, Joseph Vinieri, and maybe Caitlin Walker. I believe it was Mr. Vinieri sending me an email asking me to ensure that Quentin's remains, which by that time had come down from the FBI lab in Quantico to the GBI lab in Pooler, I think.
Yep, the babies haven't been buried yet.
Asking me to ensure that the remains not be released for interment, but instead retained by law enforcement in case they wanted to request any additional forensic testing. I got that email and communicated it to law enforcement and asked that they honor that, which they have. And that is Mr. Hilliard's right. That email is why Quentin's remains have not been released to any family members for burial. In advance of today's hearing, after the most recent of a number of requests to the family from the family that we address this issue, I sent Mr. Hilliard and Mr. Person email asking whether Ms. Simon would lift what essentially functions as like a hold on Quentin's remains on the record, so that we can safely release Quentin's remains to the family for for burial or cremation or whatever it is that they ultimately decide to do. Because I, very much respect the request and agree that it's probably something that ought to happen. We could agree to that without being accused of spoliation or something like that later on down the line. So I'm happy to hear that they're willing to do that. If I would ask that the court inquire of Ms. Simon personally about that and confirm that she's okay with that, so that everybody can then move forward.
And I was going to get to that next, Judge. I've had the discussion with her about spoliation.
Probably
and
because they
the
got to
third
put it on
directive
record,
for appeal.
Winton.
We had that discussion, and I'll let her answer for herself. And
Even though they had the conversations and came to this agreement, they probably right now putting it as a practice of just putting it on record. Now, I saw this part, you guys. I didn't see a whole lot of everything else, but I saw this part. I'm not going to just listen very closely to this part. That's all I'm going to say.
a second, but we understand it could affect the appeal going forward, but she felt that it was more important for the family to be able to bury Quentin than to preserve any possible testing for future references. And I told her both the positives and the negatives of it. Is that correct, Leilani?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll let the court engage in a colloquy about that. But we did discuss it, though, correct? Right?
Yes, we did. And Ms. Simon, you've heard the discussion that's going on right now about Quentin's remains.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a hold placed on the release of the remains in case there was any further testing.
No problem, Winton.
And that request was actually made by the attorneys who originally represented you. You understand that?
Yes,
The release will happen, but we want to make sure that's what you would like to do. Would you like for his remains to be released to the family?
Yes, most specifically, my brother who's here today, Paul Simon. I would like him to be the one that they're released to.
Yeah, I don't know how logistically how that works.
I don't know. That has more to do with probate and administration, and I don't know anything about that.
So I think who they're ultimately released to is kind of not our lane. I think that's between like the GBI and the coroner and the police and all that. I think our only concern here is whether, as a result of the defense's requests to the state, they're going to continue to be prevented from being released to anybody at all or not.
And I understand that, Mr. Dean. I understand that makes sense. So who the remains will be released to is a matter that's beyond this court. Okay.
So let me read what Lady Steph said. Then we're going to talk about this. Lady Steph says, I hear you. That's me. But when a judge does the opening statement for the jury, they're told defendants should not be judged if they choose not to testify. So I guess the Leilani jury should do the same. Can we really though? I don't think, and I think about that, right? We're going to talk about it before the next trial. We're going to have a meeting with the Leilani jury, right? But I just don't think I'll ever be able to present this commentary. One day I would hope we'll do a trial watch where we really try to practice doing what the real jury does, right? But I just don't know if I'll be able to do it. But I'm thinking that we, the Leilani jury, when we get more practice and we watch more trials and we get more of a feeling of how everything goes and we get more, you know what I'm saying, just hardcore, some real trial enthusiasts, I think then we may be able to do that as a unit. But right now, Betty Boop say nope. I just don't know. But I think the best thing, like already, 3 or 4 trials in, I am starting to be a little bit more. I try to recognize my biasness and I try to remember I'm getting a little bit better. Right? I want to definitely Lady Steph says, see, the thing is the struggle that you have. The thing is the struggle that you have, it's the same struggle a lot of people have. That's why there's 12 people that must have a conversation to come to the same decision or not. Right. Exactly. Thank God for the 12 people, not one person to decide, right? And that takes a lot for a judge to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Lady Steph, I found her give Look at Diamond Forever, child. Diamond Forever say, Lady Steph, I found her guilty when she walked through the doors. Child, she just didn't like the way her hair was made on the glasses, okay? So we're going to get better now. Check this out. What do y'all think, or who do y'all think she trying to snub? Now, we just talked about the fact that she misses every opportunity to express her love for her child, her sorrow, her grievance. Every opportunity, she turned down that opportunity to speak. However, right now, when they asked about the body remains and being released, did y'all catch the fact that to me, she was really snubbing her mother? When she said, yes, I understand. Yes, I want his body released, but I want his body released only to my brother. Nobody else, only to my brother, Paul. I think that's very telling of her personality. So even though she sat there and put on that show crying when her mama was up there apologizing to her and taking accountability, and she sat there crying, like, and I'm talking about Leilani, she sat there crying and emotional. In the next 10 minutes, she said, and she got time and the wherewithal to be nasty. That's very telling. Went to say, and so that's, her little attitude is probably the reason why she not testifying too. Because she knows she can't hide her real character. Winter said, I'm the most even non-emotional lane jury person, but this last part has irked my nerves. This is a baby. Correct, Winter. And as the little lane jury box grow and we growing, I think we're gonna start having, I think we're gonna get a good balance, right? A good balance. I love this content. I love the fact that y'all keep coming and supporting it. Oh yeah, her mama caught that. Betty Boop agrees, and her mama caught that immediately. That's why. And guess what? Everybody else in the court must have caught it immediately too, because the cameraman immediately swung that camera over to the mama. That was absolutely some shade. She shows no remorse. And for her to have the wherewithal to stand her guilty ass up in that court and try to be petty to her family, it sucks. Lady Steph say she mad at their mama because their mama just got up there and said, I know my daughter is guilty, right? Without saying, I know my daughter is guilty. Right, that just pissed her off. Yeah, she doesn't want the mom with the remains. Right. Yeah, she don't want her mama with the remains. She got a lot of stuff against her mama. Right. But she just sat there now. When she was doing all that expression of emotion when her mama was testifying, who y'all think she was crying for? When her mama was testifying. You think she was crying for her mama? You think she was crying for their relationship and what they went through? Or do you think she was just crying for herself? Because she is very self-serving. Very, very, very self-serving. She's very self-serving. Lady Steph say, I think she's still crying for Danny. Girl, she didn't move on for Danny. Remember, you gotta remember, we found out that she's sending letters to convicts, pedophiles. She didn't move on. She didn't try to have relationships with the people in rehab with her. They didn't kick her out. Herself. Exactly. She really gets on my nerves. Okay, this is going to be the last time we see her.
Okay. But
period.
You agree to have the remains released.
Yes, Mr. Hillary spoke to me about it on Sunday when he found out about it. I waited until yesterday so I could think about it. Mm-hmm. But my son's been through enough. To be honest, he's been through enough.
Yeah, at your doing.
Do you have any further questions about that?
And I would like to hear. I discussed with you that there could be further testing and science could advance in the years to come.
I know why there would be a downfall. I understand that there is still matter with the and I want my baby home.
I just want to go. All right, thank you, Ms. Simon. You may have.
I wanted to clear that up. My argument's simple, Judge. We're asking for a life with parole sentence. It's only life with or life without. I understand Mr. Dean gave this long list here. But at the end of the day, she's a young lady, and life in Georgia, at least, is 35 to 40 years before your first eligibility for parole with parole. That puts her
Okay,
in
so
her late 60s, early 70s.
Okay, so we just found out that in Georgia, that's where they add life with the possibility of parole. The earliest she can go up for parole will be 30 years or 40 at the outset, right? And so what's also interesting right now, y'all, is this is the prosecutor talking. So check this out. I saw this part, but I ain't gonna give it away. But listen closely.
Mid 60s to late 60s to early 70s. We understand that we're talking about the death of a 20-month-old child. But Your Honor sat through the trial, and we don't know the manner or method in which it occurred. We still don't, and that's an issue for an appeal, which will go up. The question is whether or not she's someone who should be stuck away for the rest of her life without any possibility of seeing the light of day again. And I urge to you, there's nothing about her criminal history, which is pretty much non-existent until this. There's nothing about her life which shows that she is above any redemption or rehabilitation. The people who know her best have asked the court for a life with parole sentence. So we're asking the court for that. I understand why Mr. Dean wants to do all of these fines. I get it. I understand why he wants to ask for his consecutive sentences. I get it. But to me, the ultimate question is whether it's life with or life without parole. And we think.
Oh, no, this is the defense. Oh, okay, this is the defense, not the prosecutor.
Shot at coming out again one day. Because it's not just about fashioning a sentence that punishes the crime. You have to realize that the offender is going to be serving the time as well. And while the offender is serving the time, there has to be something to maintain hope or institutional behavior. And in this particular case, I think a life with parole sentence would serve that purpose. So I understand the severity of the crime that she's been convicted of. I understand Mr. Dean's position. I don't agree with it. I don't think there's anything about this case necessarily that means that she's unredeemable or should never see the light of day again. So we're asking the court to give life with parole. We're asking the court to merge the false statements and the concealing of death. We're asking the court to not impose a fine, as a life with parole sentence is what it means, life with parole. So there's no manner or method or ability to pay a fine. And I understand the reason why Mr. Dean wants to do that, but I just don't see that there's any ability to pay. So that's what we're asking, and we're leaving it with the court. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Mr. Dean.
Your Honor, will be relieved to hear that I do not have an hour and a half long PowerPoint to present to the court, but I do want to talk for a couple minutes. I'll start with the big picture of what the evidence shows, both through the trial and then the evidence that we've added today. Just, a few simple bullet points here. The defendant didn't like Quentin. There's credible evidence of that. Jury evidently found it credible. Had some witnesses come in and dispute that today, but I would submit that they are not the most objective sources of information on that. Her dislike for Quentin was not a result of any drug problem. It's totally independent of that. If you combine the testimony of Melanie Bowling and Talia McCarta and Michelle McCarta, it spanned his entire life. Has nothing to do with drugs whatsoever. She murdered him, and the jury has found that she had this specific intent to kill when she did so. And this sets this case apart from cases in which the jury only makes a finding of guilt on felony murder, but acquits on malice murder. This jury does not do that. And there's a great deal of aggravation. Some of the aggravation is charged as independent offenses, concealing the death and false statements and false report of a crime and so forth. Some of it is not. The aggravation includes her covering it up in a deliberate, calculating, and very manipulative way. It involved totally shameless and reprehensible attempts to blame people without conscience, right? Just no compunction about blaming other people who were totally innocent of this and who in fact loved Quentin very much. She behaved in a way that shows a total lack of remorse, both during the investigation, when on day one, she's asking Paul, hey, do you got some weed to smoke when we get home? On October 18th, when the police have announced that they're about to start searching for Quentin's little body in the landfill, she's out at Stingray's getting drunk and flirting with the waiter, in a continuation of what we talked about at trials, to kind of what the theory was here, that a lot of this had to do with her need for male attention. This seems to have continued. She behaved in a way that shows absolutely no remorse and no compunction about what she did during her pretrial investigation and during the trial itself, as we've tried to show here today. Even to her mother, her closest confidant, who taught her to take responsibility for your actions, which is something that Billie Joe Howell, has done. I mean, she did it here today. She talked about all of her missteps and how she pulled herself out of them. She took no responsibility even to her mother, who taught her those things and was her close confidant. It's one thing to not admit to the police what you did and not take any responsibility to the police. It's kind of another thing to treat your mother, whom you claim to love so much, the same way. The upshot of all this is that she just doesn't seem sorry at all. She really doesn't seem sorry. She seems sorry that she got caught. She seems sorry that she had to stand trial. She seems sorry that she's going to go to prison for a long time. The only question here is whether it's forever for her. But she doesn't really seem sorry about what she did. If she had been sorry about this at any point, there were a million off ramps. After killing she could have just not thrown his body in a dumpster. We get these abusive head trauma, child homicide cases. In typically, the fact pattern is the perpetrator does the thing, they do the act, and then they just say to the police, "Oh, I found him in the crib like this, and I don't know why he's not breathing, or there was some sort of accident or something like this." She could have played it that way after killing Quentin. She could have. So that's like off ramp number one, is just don't throw him in the dumpster.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
Exactly.
And at any time, she could have stopped telling lies, just refused to talk at all. Certainly didn't have to blame anybody else. She could have just said she didn't know. Certainly didn't have to blame like 3 or 4 different people. So she doesn't seem sorry at all. And she's taken no responsibility. And she seems to sort of think that she's kind of at least playing as though she's the victim. I would ask the court to look at this letter to WTOC and really read it, in which she's playing the role of like a detached commentator evaluating the evidence. And she'd sure love to know what happens. But, the problem is she just keeps running into these gaps in the evidence. And that's really frustrating to her, because she wants to know what happened. And it's just so infuriating and bizarre, because, obviously she knows what happened, because she's the one who did it. It is bizarre, it is infuriating, and it is, quite frankly, insulting to everyone's intelligence, and really makes a mockery of the process. There's been this effort to blame it on drugs and mental health issues. Mr. Hilliard is too smart and savvy and experienced to try to do that directly, because I think he knows that you don't come in and say, Judge, it was the drugs. But some of the witnesses maybe don't have that level of experience and were willing to just say it was the drugs. The drugs did it. To medicalize it, to kind of shift responsibility from her onto her conditions or these substances. Lots of people have tough upbringings. Lots of people take drugs, but very few of them kill their own child. We're familiar with words like homicide, killing somebody else, suicide, killing yourself, fratricide, killing your brother, or biological, or your brother in arms. Even infanticide. There's a word for this. The court may or may not know: filicide.
Filicide.
Killing your own child who's not an infant. A
Yep.
lot of people don't know that word, and the reason a lot
Yep.
of
And
people don't know that
matricide
word is it just
when
doesn't
they are
happen
infant.
often. It is a heinous thing to do. So heinous, in fact, that people do it very infrequently, and that's what she did.
Baby, not even no crumbs.
The drugs did not do that. I'll point out something about the drugs in this case. It's easy for people to get up there and kind of say, without really examining like how this would work or what this really means, is, oh, the drugs caused her to do it. Let's just look at the substances that she was on that night. Cocaine.
Well, if she was to get sentenced right now, according to the Lit Lane jury box, it's 100% at the time I'm looking at it now. Doesn't that give you a check and X instead of the percentage at Demetra? No, I don't think so. It's a different feature. That it gives, okay, what you're talking about, that's on the community wall. But they got another feature here for question and answering. That's a little bit different. I gotta really read and do it because I want to up some stuff for the new year. So I'm going to look into it. But that's a different feature on the wall that you're talking about. According to the Lit Lane jury box, right now we are sentencing her with life without parole. 8 votes. 100%. Nobody has voted life with the possibility of parole, and that's a possibility, right? It's not even guaranteed that she'll get the parole. But y'all saying, because I vote that way too. No. And I think it's because of her lack of accountability to me. Writing her no remorse to me. What she deserve a second chance for? Even that got doggone 70.
None of these substances are the kind of substances that are going to induce like a psychosis and essentially turn you into a different person or make you do something that you have no control over. You hear about that sort of thing, I guess, like bath salts and things like that. But that is just that's not what she was on. It wasn't anything like that. And it's a total red herring to say that the drugs did it. What she did to him was something that was inside of her already. It was inside of her already. Maybe the drugs lowered her inhibitions. Maybe they acted as an accelerant. Maybe they're like, the match to the candle or something like that. But they didn't cause her to do what she did. She did it. The drugs are not responsible for it. She is. She just did a wicked thing, and she needs to take responsibility for it. And so our recommendation is a total sentence of life without the possibility of parole, plus 65 years and a fine of $117.
Damn, not plus 65 years.
The maximum
not
that
plus
I
65
calculate
years
is available under the law. I've emailed the court separately that the count by count breakdown. I won't go through that here, and the justification for the fine. that is essentially our goal there is to ensure that if the defendant ever attempts to profit from her crimes by signing a book deal or taking a paid interview, that there will be an existing financial obligation that will cause at least some of the money, up to $117,000, to be diverted to defray some of the costs associated with her conduct in this case. Now, that brings me to kind of the last question, which is really separate and apart
No,
from whether the Court of Judges of Fine here is.
Lady Steph, he say plus 60. No, he say plus 65 years. He said, hey, Lady T. Yeah, but that's okay. I know you want to, I was thinking about you doing this live. I know you asked about it last night. It's very interesting, the testimonies. So definitely do a replay, right? But Lady Steph, I'm going to rewind a little bit. I think that he definitely said plus 65 years and 165 or something like that for the fine. Because he don't want her to be able to make no money off of no Dateline interviews or nothing else, or no book or nothing, which makes sense.
You have no control over. You hear about that sort of thing, I guess, like bath salts and things like that.
Hold on, we're going to listen again.
But that is just not.
Rewind it.
It's not.
Hey, Kathy Smith, thank you for being in the Little Angel.
It wasn't anything
Cloud
like
box.
that. And it's a total red herring to say that the drugs did it.
Hold
what
on.
she did to him was something.
Hold on. Kathy say, I've been driving and listening. I voted without parole, but now I think her give life with parole and deny her every time she gets her hope up. Girl. You that would make, if you gave her life, I get it, right? But I think that's interesting. I think that if you was to give her life with the possibility of parole on that basis, that would be considered cruel and unusual punishment. I think that's like a perfect example of it. Not saying she don't deserve it, okay? But we on the rewind. Let's see here. And then we're going to get through this because my honey here. And so I ain't going to talk much after this. Let's see. Well, tell you.
That was inside of her already. It was inside of her already. Maybe the drugs lowered her inhibitions. Maybe they acted as an accelerant. Maybe they're like, the match to the candle or something like that. But they didn't cause her to do what she did. She did it. The drugs are not responsible for it. She is. She just did a wicked thing, and she needs to take responsibility for it. And so our recommendation is a total sentence of life without the possibility of parole, plus 65 years and a fine of $117,000. The maximum that I calculate is available under the law.
Okay, so it's plus 65 years
I've
plus
emailed the court separately
$117,000 fine.
I won't go through that here. And the justification for the fine. That is essentially our goal there is to ensure that if the defendant ever attempts to profit from her crimes by signing a book deal or taking a paid interview, that there will be an existing financial obligation that will cause at least some of the money, up to $117,000, to be diverted to defray some of the costs associated with her conduct in this case. Now, that brings me to kind of the last question, which is really separate and apart from whether the Court of Judges of Fine here is why life without parole and not life. That's really the only question, is whether the court is going to impose the additional punishment of the life sentence never being parolable. And it's a reasonable thing for the defense to say, gosh, life is a serious sentence. 30 years before you become parole eligible is a long time. And that's true. And we are here asking the court to go above that and to impose the maximum. And I'd like to kind of defend why and argue why. When we talk about sentencing, we talk about the principles of punishment. There are a number of them. We learn them in law school, and they come up in sentencing arguments. And Mr. Hilliard has gestured at some of them, rehabilitation and things like that. And I'll just kind of walk through these. One of the principles of punishment that we talk about is incapacitation, which is incapacitating the offender from committing a similar offense. Somebody is so dangerous, they just need to be locked up to keep them off the street. Now, can I say that incapacitation, the need for incapacitation, justifies the additional sentence of life without parole here? Not really. I don't think that principle of punishment is the justification. That she's so dangerous that life with the possibility of parole is not sufficient. Next, we have deterrence, both specific and general. Specific deterrence meaning the need to have a serious enough sentence that it deters her from doing something similar, and general deterrence, that it deters other people in the community who might contemplate doing the same thing from doing it. I don't know that that's really in play here either. I don't think she needs life without parole versus life to not do it again. And I don't know that there's anybody out there who's contemplating killing their child who's going to go through with it if she gets life without the possibility of parole, but won't go through with it if she gets life without the possibility of parole. And then we have rehabilitation, the need for rehabilitation. I cannot say that there's no chance she could be rehabilitated, that she's totally beyond rehabilitation. I think the court could reasonably find that. I think there's a lot of evidence here that she is incorrigible. But I can't say for sure that after 30
Great
years,
descriptor for her, incorrigible.
she's so
Very
beyond the
good.
hope of rehabilitation that she has to stay.
She don't
on
like
that
none of that.
basis, that she just can't be rehabilitated. And so where we end up is at the last principle of punishment that I know of, and that is retribution. Punishment because you deserve it. A harsh punishment because you deserve it by virtue of what you did and how you acted. Not dressed up as being, towards rehabilitation or towards deterrence, but just punishment as a matter of moral desert. This sometimes gets a bad rap. I've heard it described as the least morally defensible principle of punishment. It's somehow punishment dressed up as being for rehabilitation or being for deterrence is somehow morally acceptable, that punishment simply because you deserve it, because of what you did. But I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. For one, it is the principle of punishment that, to the state's view, most lines up with the average person's intuition about what punishment is for and their concept of justice. It is actually okay and right and good to punish people harshly simply because they deserve it and not justify it further. You have to get really educated to learn that universal moral intuition is actually a bad thing or somehow wrong. Now, we sometimes kind of accept that what people say about retributive punishment is true, that it is less defensible than the other principles of punishment. But there's not a consensus on this. That is actually not the consensus view. There are a lot of very smart academics and legal philosophers who continue to defend and make the case for retribution. There's an article by a legal academic, Dan Markle. He's a professor at Florida State Law School. Coincidentally and tragically, he was actually murdered himself. But he wrote on retributive punishment. In a 2011 article that I found, he talks about how it has both a communicative function and an expressive function.
Pause. So for you true crime heads, right? Dan Markle, the one that he's referring to, the law professor who he finna quote, that's the case that was a big nationwide case, I do believe, last year, where that woman, the ex-wife, had got her and her brother and them had paid off the hitman down in Florida or something like that to kill her ex-husband, which was Dan Markle, in order for her to get custody of, well, she had custody, in order for her to have full custody of her boys and to move back to where she was from. And now the mama, what's her name? Some Donna Anderson, something like that. She in jail facing the trial now too for her party. So if you're a true crime head, then you'll recognize that name and that reference, Dan Markle. Let's continue.
Function. That punishment, retributive punishment, because you deserve it, a harsh sentence, just because you deserve it and you did a really bad thing, communicates to the defendant the seriousness of what they did and society's lack of acceptance for it. And it performs an expressive function too. It communicates to the defendant the seriousness of what she did, and it forms an expressive function. It expresses to society how seriously the court takes behavior like this. And I've got some long quotes in here from these articles. I think I will not read them. I think I will just kind of restate that in my words. Another way of saying this is that a severe sentence, here the harshest one under the law is what we're asking for, sends a message to both her and to the community. And she needs the message. Quite frankly, she needs the message. She doesn't get it. She needs to receive a solemn statement from the court that for an offense like this and for aggravating circumstances like this, the only punishment that will do, the only punishment that will adequately get through to her the seriousness of what she's done and just how unacceptable her actions are, is the maximum sentence under the law. That appears to be, at this point, the only thing that the court can do to try to get through to her. This letter to WTOC is dated September of this year. She still doesn't get it. And the court should send her a message. One, this is nonsense. And two, you deserve the most severe sanction that the court can lay on you. The court should send the community a message too. To the people that cared about Quentin, who knew him during his life, he was a child in their lives, and to people who came to know him only after the defendant killed him. And why do these people care about him? Simply because he was a child in their community, and that is enough. The court should send a message to them that their intuition about how monstrous it is for a mother to kill her own child and then act like she acted in the aftermath, and what the price tag for that ought to be, that intuition that they have is entirely correct and is shared by the justice system and by the court, which is really their justice system and their court. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Dean, I was looking for.
All right, so everybody gave their arguments. All the witnesses have testified. She convicted. I think the judge now is ready to weigh in and give her actual sentence in her little speech. Okay, thank you guys for supporting this content. Let's get to the end of this. Oh yeah, and I closed the poll. It's a unanimous vote for the Leilani jury box to sentence her to life with no possibility for parole.
The email, and I believe the computer that I'm looking at has not updated, and I would like to have that before me. Would you also pass up? Yeah, thank you.
We double booping in the chat today. We normally be double Steffing with the 2 steps. Today we got the double boops, Betty Boops.
Okay. I'm going to pronounce sentence. Please stand.
Damn, she already had her sentence ready. Let's see.
The one thing that I will say before pronouncing sentence is clearly little Quentin Simon's life
Why she
and
standing
death
up?
impacted many, many individuals.
Why is she standing up? Is the judge gonna let her continue to stand up? Child, if that's not dramatic, that's very dramatic. So what's she saying? She's standing in camaraderie with her daughter, that she's saying she's standing there because whatever the sentence is, she's gonna do it with her daughter. What the hell was that? What the hell is this dramatic? See, I don't like all that fake dramatic stuff and all this stuff to be seen. What y'all think about that? Exactly, Captain. The Auntie was getting on my nerve too, and now the mama right now with this, exactly, she's standing in solidarity. That little move right there is a publicity stunt I don't appreciate. Let's continue. Oh my God. The judge can tell her to sit down.
At large. Leilani Marie Simon, the court sentences you as follows. Count 1, malice murder, felony, life with the possibility of parole. Count 2,
oh wow,
felony murder, vacated by operation of law. Count 3, felony murder is vacated by operation of law. Count 4, concealing the death of another, 10 years consecutive to count 1. Count 5.
Me either, Betty Boop.
False report of a crime is a misdemeanor, 12 months concurrent to count 4. Count 6, making a false statement, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Count 7, making a false statement concurrent with count 4, 5 years. Count 8, false statement, 5 years consecutive with, concurrent with count 4. Count 9, making a false statement, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Count 10 merges into count 9. Count 11, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Count 12, making a false statement, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Delia, did I get count 11?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Count 13, making a false statement, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Count 14 merges into count 13. Count 15,
Boo,
5 years
Judge
concurrent
Sammy
with count
Stokes.
4.
Boo.
Count 16, making a false statement, 5 years concurrent with count 4. Count 17 merges into 16. Count 18.
So
5
she could
years
do 40 years and get
to
parole,
serve
y'all.
concurrent with count 4. And false statements, making a false statement, count 19 concurrent with count 4. That is 5 years as well. Is there any issue that the state wants to point out with the sentence and the merger of the counts?
Was count 4, the 10 years to serve on count 4, is that consecutive? To
Yeah, now she
It is
she
consecutive.
happy now, Lady T.
Then,
Lady
may I
T.
presume that the court is not imposing any fines?
No. Mr. Hilliard,
So just to make sure, life plus 10 is the operative sentence.
life plus 10.
Life with, and I guess we should do the same appeal as well.
And with that, Ms. Simon, you are hereby notified that under the law of Georgia, you are entitled to appeal the guilty verdict of the court. And if you decide to do so, you must file your appeal within 30 days of this date. You're also informed that you have the right to retain a lawyer of your own choice to represent you on your post-trial motions and appeals to the appropriate appellate court of Georgia. If you cannot afford a lawyer, the court will appoint one for you. You are entitled to
Not
and will
Bruce
be
Jenner
given
for
a
the mama.
transcript of all pretrial, trial, and post-trial matters without cost to you if you cannot afford a transcript. You may file a motion for a new trial, or you may appeal your case directly to the appropriate appellate court of Georgia for review. I'm signing the statement of appeal. I will hand this down to the clerk. You'll please hand that to Mr. Hilliard.
I think Lady T saying she won't make it out. What you mean? Like, won't make it out because of violence in the jail against child murderers? Because guess what? That, it may happen a lot with those men, but a lot of these women that got convicted of this, just like Susan Smith. What is she the one? They make it. They don't get it as hard as them women, especially when there's not any type of actual abuse. Very cute girl. She got it colored since we last seen her.
Counsel, Ms. Simon has acknowledged in writing.
I bet somebody already
Your
set up her
And the habeas statement is as follows.
dating site.
You're advised that
Okay.
statute of limitations for habeas corpus in this state is 4 years in the case of felonies and 1 year in the case of misdemeanors. The statute begins to run from the date the conviction becomes final. All right.
She got denied. I think I'm gonna show that
May there
after
be
we finish
peace
our trial. We watching
somehow.
now,
Nothing further from the defense, Judge.
or
Thank you
like on
very
a
much.
Saturday show like
Anything
this.
further?
No, you're on.
Nothing from the state, nothing from the defense.
Ooh, yeah.
This concludes this matter. We are adjourned.
And with that, Lit Lane Jury Box here on Trial Watch with Demetra, we have officially concluded, and we are officially putting this particular case, one of our first trial watches, to rest. This has been the state of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. She was convicted of unaliving her 20-month-old son. The method was unknown. Quentin, his body, as you will recall, was located, fragments of his body was located after a long 32-day search of a local landfill. The state of Georgia found her guilty, and they just sentenced her to life with the possibility of parole, which we heard during this sentencing trial phase can be anywhere. That could be anywhere from 30 to 40 years. They didn't specify. Okay. As the Little Lane jurors say, Betty Boop say, what? Lady Steph said, boo. Lady T say, Leilani's face when she heard she can get parole, it's the exact reason she didn't deserve it. Lady T say she ain't gonna make it out of them. Captain Smithton told her mama to sit her butt down looking like Bruce Jenner. Betty Boop said, this some bull crap. Diamond say she never leaving the building. And Renee say, girl, boo, Judge Stokes hair cute. Okay. Diamond forever say she gonna pick up more charges inside. Yeah, she keep up that fraternizing and stuff like that. I can see that happening. And because of the fact that, like the prosecutor say, she's very incorrigible. She's the type of person that want to do exactly what she want to do, and ain't no telling her no. She want to have her way. Winter says, "Oh, okay, I knew it was going on, but didn't follow up with the outcome." Talk about the Susan Smith. Yeah, I'm definitely going to show. We're going to definitely watch that in that sentencing. I mean, that parole hearing, as some separate content, but the true crime content. So look out for that. Okay. Winter says, "I really don't think she will ever be paroled." Okay. Because the option is, don't forget, it's just a possibility of parole. And I am gonna bring back free them or keep them, Little Lane Jury Box. You know, my true crime watchers. I'm bringing that back as well. Over on the Trial Watch with Demetra official channel. Starting in January 2025, where we watch the parole hearings and we decide whether they should get parole or not get parole, right? Y'all remember that? Free them or keep them. We will start that content back up January 2025. So we into some good stuff with the true crime. Don't forget to look at the Tiffany Lucas case. Correct. I wrote that down. As well as what's her name? Tashelle. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 cases right there I need to watch, in the Susan Smith. Get that recording done. Okay, you guys. So you guys, it seemed like when I went to go put that poll up in the chat, that's when I started my notifications, and it seemed like some stuff going on in the streets. So I'm gonna go ahead and dismiss the Little Lane Jury Box. You guys have an absolutely terrific rest of your weekend. Don't forget, pit crew members are going to be the Sunday pit crew pull up. That's where we have our membership, and I'm gonna drop the link for the members tomorrow. And got a couple of topics and a couple of things, interesting things to talk about. So that's at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Lit Lane Pit Crew members. If you see them in green, that's what that means. If you're not a member, please consider becoming a member. Okay. All right. Y'all have a fantastic night until I see y'all again tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Pit Crew. Bye.